Hope you're all having a wonderful morning, day, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time it is where you are. I'm out here in the wilds of the Middle East, and right now, at this very moment, in this particular location, it is relatively chill um, compared to earlier in the day, and yeah, that's how it goes around here. Sometimes it's not so chill. Anyway, if you have been looking at the Bitcoin market, if you didn't happen to catch our live stream and off the trading, um, well, I'm just doing a little quick update here as I'm on a short little break here for about 10, 15 minutes or so. And yeah, well, what did I tell you would happen when I did a live earlier today? Right? I told you we were very likely to see mean reversions happening on lower time frames before we would see the completion of the mean reversion to the upside on the higher time frames like the 7-day on the 3012 RMLR. And lo and behold, what happened, right? Bitcoin hit that 90K and proceeded to mean revert to the downside and hit some very, very nice targets, which you could see very clearly on the VRE and on the lower time frame RMLRs. And yes, Bitcoin mean reverted exactly as I told you it was going to do. Why? How did I know? Well, what do assets do, folks? They distribute and they mean revert. That's all they do. Right? And how do they do that? Well, it's the returns that are distributing away from the mean of returns and that mean revert to the mean of returns. And they revert to the mean of returns. That is mean reversion. Price action just follows those returns. So, of course, price action was going to drop once the returns began to drop. That was not a surprise to anyone that knows about this stuff, which is why I always say buy low, sell high, right? Don't do the opposite. The opposite will get you wrecked. And unfortunately, that's what most people do. They don't know how to manage their risk. So, is it a surprise? Were you caught off guard? Were you in a long thinking it was going to go up to 100K because it had hit 90? If you did, that means you didn't know how to manage your risk well. And more importantly, it also means, or just as importantly, it means you don't know how to read the highly relevant information of the volatility, entropy, probabilities, and statistics. Because if you did, you would not have longed the top, right? In fact, you wouldn't have longed anywhere above 85K, really, unless you were scalping real fast. Low time frames, which is what you ought to be doing if you're a real intraday trader, right? But yeah, if you were like, if you trade like once a day or something, and you bought after it went above 85K yesterday, you were cruising for a bruising. And if you did, and it came back to your entry point, did you stay in when it bottomed and bounced, or did you do what a lot of people did and sell at the bottom of that drop? And are you aware of what the probabilities are of what it's going to do next, right? Because if you think that it can't go any lower, and you haven't looked at the mean reversion charts, and you haven't looked at the VREs, and you have no idea that there are indeed probabilities that remain to the downside. Now, do I think it's going to go down into the 50K area again right now? No, I don't think the probabilities are going to do that. There's always probabilities, though, right? But could it dip back below 80K? There's definitely some targets below there that it could hit, right? Like I said, it does not need to complete that mean reversion to the 3012 RMLR on the weekly candle this week. It could happen next week or the week after, or sometime next month. It could happen by around the end of the year. It could happen at some point in 2025. It does not have to happen on any particular candle, but the fact is, it is highly probable that it will complete that mean reversion before it hits that third band to the downside of that 30-12 RMLR on the weekly, just like it is on any time frame. So keep that in mind. Whatever time frame you're looking at, it's always distributing or mean reverting. That's all it's doing, right? And it's either on a random walk or in a trending move. Those are the two phases it can be in. Most of the time, it's on a random walk on any given time frame. About 20% of the time or so, it's on a trending move, depending on the asset and all that stuff. But that's a rough ballpark estimate for you. Give you an idea of how that works. How can you see when it's on a random walk or trending move? By looking at the entropy indicators. Right, at Alpha Trading, we have literally the best entropy indicator available for retail. And we have the best correlations for entropy available for retail, all in one indicator, just like we do with our volatility indicators. And yes, we have them split into two indicators for the volatility starter pack. That's just to make it easier for you to read when you're learning. But once you've learned the basics, you can see very easily that actually you can see them in one indicator very nicely, very neatly. Right? Similarly to variance, right? We have an original variance that's split into two parts, and we have an updated one that's, all in one line, basically. So it shows you whether or not the variance is positive or correlated, whether it's positive or negative, whether it's expanding or contracting, and whether or not the correlation is positive or negative. And of course, you can always split the indicator into two parts also to see whether or not the correlation is positive or negative, above the mean or below the mean. Right. Anyway, so I hope you all had a very good run on the upside. Took your profits. Didn't necessarily wait for it to hit 90. Right? Took your profits. Maybe even shorted the move back down. And then took your profits when I made that 5K move to the downside, exactly to the VRE targets, just like I said I would do. And that's it for now, guys. You know what? Let me see if I can. I'll be back in a minute. Hold on. Probably be back in like 5 minutes. See you guys.